Let me first ask if what you're describing is part of what you wrote to me about in the idea of the intention action gap.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mentioned the intention action gap. You have an intention to do something, but your action doesn't actually follow through. And I was sort of thinking while I was writing up some notes for you, I was thinking that you could also reframe it as the intention attention gap. Because it's like you have an intention to do something, but at the end of the day, do you actually have the attention and the mental bandwidth to notice that, hey, there were some learnings today. I need to take the time to think those through and to capitalize on everything that went down. And if you are burnt out, if you are, it's been a long day, you might not have that attention. And a beautiful learning opportunity might just slip through your fingers. So that is what I was referring to.
Shall we pause with this for a minute? Because this is a genuine and delicious challenge that would be of interest to many people early in their career in terms of how they develop the strategy around it. And I don't know that I have the answer. I can more talk to how I approached that challenge and offer some mental models about it. In the most immediate way, what I will say is what I've tried to do is I've always made sure that I never just worked for the company or the client or the situation that I'm working for. There is always something else that I'm working for in myself while I do this work. Can you follow that? Could you resonate with that?
You always have to be aware of how likely it is that you are going to go into a new environment and have that environment sort of change you, I think. In the sense that, like, it isn't the company's goal at the end of the day for you to be a self-realized, self-actualized person. So there's a lot of forces that sort of, if you're not careful, can make you feel like you have a bit of amnesia and forget about why you initially, or like that second vector of growth that you were just mentioning there. And that can sort of feel like a distant memory when you're caught in the intensity of the moment. So yes, I agree. That is exactly what you should do, but it's easy to get disconnected from that original intention, at least in my experience.
Okay, so Ari, so what I am proposing in even more of a concrete way, that you're absolutely right. When you operate in and you work for a large company that has its for-profit agenda and growth agenda, you need to develop an as robust, as potent, as clearly and directionally inspired agenda for yourself.
Yeah.
And there are several ways to do this. One way to do this is to take a bigger cause, whatever that cause is. You may have a cause in the world to do with education, to do with the environment, to do with any other problem on the global stage that you decide that this is something you will support and serve. And you work on it as an endeavor in parallel. Now you'd say, yeah, that's not very realistic for me because that actually will involve more work, and it's like taking an extra job. I don't know that I can do that, but fair enough. So that's one way to do this. Mm-hmm. The second is that you truly make the determination that even if you're working for the most exciting company in the world, you're actually working firstly for the company that called Ari Incorporated. You are the CEO of your own company. And that part of your mission in life is to discover what it is that you're here to do. So that is more me encouraging that you actually work on discovering your purpose or the living issue or the personal mission of your life, in which while the company is using your brilliance and your creativity to serve its purpose, you're working and using the opportunities that the company provides you to develop and unlock your creativity. And there is a reciprocity that's highly ethical because both parties enjoy that. Because unless you form that partnership in your mind, you could say that you enter some advanced form or modern form or postmodern form of slavery in the sense that you surrender your mental faculties 24/7 for the company that you work in. Look, many of those large companies are my clients, and I work with their leadership teams, and I help them, between other things, unlock and unleash the creative potential of their people. And one of the advisories I will make is very much what I'm describing now, which is how can you help your people unlock their creativity inside the context of even a bigger view for themselves. Mm-hmm. So you don't know whether you will spend the next year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years in this company or another company. But what you do know is that you have yourself for the duration of your life. This life is not a dress rehearsal. We're not here one time to learn to how to go through the motions so we can then come back and do an improved version. So therefore, the imperative of being present to our own experience, to your own experience, to your life is critical. And I'm proposing that finding the discipline either by yourself, and that's very difficult. And so the second recommendation is that you find yourself a circle of accountability or a community context where there is a shared journey with some similar inquiry, such that you don't wake up 10 years later into your 40s and say, what were some ideas that I had late as I was closing my 20s and wanted to live a purposeful life and a life of meaning and discover what am I here for? So I would offer that challenge.
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you turned at the end there to finding some sort of circle, because I think that is the key. I think I think in America, in the sort of Western industrialized world, there's a lot of myths and a lot of deep desires around the sort of like self-made man or the sort of hero on their journey, conquering things and beating all odds, and just through will alone and through determination alone and through those sorts of force-based things. Essentially, like you are forcing yourself to do something that is hard and you are overcoming it. And I think just that hasn't worked for me throughout my life. And no matter how much energy I muster and how much strength I have, at some point it feels like it's not enough. And the only times that I've really started to step into a consistent, more beautiful way of being are when I'm surrounded by others, or when I create contexts that help me step into that space more and that hold me to it. And I've done different things around that. I've had different discussion groups with close friends where we meet and talk about the most meaningful things in our lives and share the honest truth about what's going on with each of us, and those sorts of experiences are the ones that at the end of the day help me become the being that I'm trying to become. And I think the question now is how do I do that? And I think part of why I'm coming to you in this sort of more raw, frustrated state of like feeling like it hasn't been done is in large part due to to the last year that we've all experienced, and the essentially atomizing, disconnecting effect that it's had on a lot of people. So I feel like a lot of the structures that I was building for myself that were pushing me in the right direction sort of dissolved. So yeah, it's interesting, and I'm talking to you at a very interesting inflection point too, because I think a lot of people might identify with this, but it seems like there's something new in the air right now at this moment in time. Something is shifting within, I think, the hearts and minds of a lot of people, and it sort of feels like a collective awakening. And I think COVID and this past year sort of felt like a collective slumber, at least to me. And I think, you know, you might disagree. You were out there creating and doing amazing things, but it did have a bit of a sense of everyone's going into their dens, and now it's starting to feel like people are emerging. And I'm being very open and honest here about the challenges, because I think, you know, just it feels like I've been asleep a bit this last year, and I'm waking up to that fact right now, and I'm starting to see all the ways in which, like, wow, I had some amazing experiences at work and I didn't really learn anything from them. Like, I just sort of did them and then moved on, and there wasn't any structure to help me to reflect on those, to incorporate them into my way of being. And, you know, yeah, like I could have done better with that myself. I could have forced myself to sit down and journal and write more, but at the end of the day, that attention, that extra energy to do that just wasn't there. It had evaporated with the collective turning inwards that I think a lot of people experienced. So yeah, what does any of that land on you?
Let me rethread through several things you said, because they're important. Let me first address the solo hero myth that you brought to focus. I think this is a very important point. I do believe you're right. There is a distorted myth in America that about the self-made solo hero myth. I think there are very, 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 very few people where that is true. And then when we look at them closely, we discover that they've had a dream team around them that enabled them to become the person they became. And I think this is even more so the case today than, say, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 decades ago. Because of the change in technology, because of the destruction of and interruption of devices, and because of the velocity of a connected world. So I do think you're absolutely right in the criticality of having a community or a circle or an accountability group or a buddy system of sort. And the best, most impactful way that I believe, and I've seen that will work, is when you bring some kind of a convergence, where there is an interest to pull together the professional dimension, your personal development, your professional development, and to a degree your spiritual quest, whatever that means for you. Because what you describe, Ari, as I have no energy at the end of the day, to enter the meta-processing space where I look back at my experience today and make sure that I am awake to even the time when I was asleep, so I'm awakened later, and I do that debrief. That is truly essential. If we are, each one of us, if we are to become an individuated human being. And this is part of the ambidextrous conundrum. This time, when I say this time, I mean the kind of evolution that humanity is going through, I believe requires more collaboration, teamwork, community work, collective endeavor, and inside it, even more and greater is the importance that we each individuate to discover who we are, what is most critical for you, for me, for any person, and how do you fashion that newly emergent self that you are becoming. That is the property that we are after in the idea, in the inquiry of conscious evolution. So we need more of the structure of the collective, but not a collective where the individuated disappears, but rather a collective where the individuated can emerge with greater clarity and elegance.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just it's objectively true. I mean, like the balance between the collective and the individual. It's like most things in life. If you go too far to one polarity, then it's going to need to rebalance itself. The system will need to reboot and shift the other way. And I think I've done a lot of thinking about paradox and about polarity and all that sort of stuff. And we are now in a time of like, we can no longer afford to shift from one polarity to the other, given the amount of just, existential risk and exponential power that exists in this world. So what you're saying, like, having the individual and the collective both existing at the same time in balance, it's critical right now, right? If we all turn into a collective mush of like no individual thinking, just a massive people misled by social media, stuck in echo chambers and all that sort of stuff, like we're not going to survive. This world is going to end. And likewise, if we all continue acting as individual beings and just take from the earth and think that whatever benefits me is fine regardless of the externalities it has on others, that's also self-terminating. So I think I guess that is all to say I'm in agreement, and I think it's more critical than ever. And I think I am struggling on both spectrums, as I think a lot of people are.